Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to this very first step in your road to Vote 24. For the next 8 Sundays between 5 and 6 p.m., we'll bring you interviews, debates, panel discussions to help you navigate this season as we build up to Election Day on Wednesday, the 29th of May. It's a crucial election for our country, and we hope you'll make us your channel of choice as we look back on our journey through 30 years of democracy and cast our eyes forward to what the next 30 years could be. I'm your host, William Vogo. Let's be on our way. Virtually all indices suggest that the battleground KwaZulu-Natal is the most contested province in this election. Little wonder 3 of the country's biggest 4 parties chose to launch their manifestos in that province. And that's where this very first episode of our new show is going to focus on. Home to 12.4 million of the country's more than 62 million inhabitants, KZN has a voting population of 5.7 million people, and of those, 103,000 are newly registered voters. My first guests represent the 3 parties currently leading the pack in the province. In charge of the ANC in KZN is, of course, Mr. Siboniso Duma, who is the chairperson of the party in that province. But, of course, he's leading a party that has been running KZN since 1999, a party that retained majority in 2019 but lost their share of the vote for the very first time since 1994. And if we go to the IFP, councillor and premier candidate is Tami Nduli. They are pinning their hopes on that person to lead their election campaign this time around. The party, of course, polled the highest votes in 1994, but didn't get an outright majority in the province. It's been in decline since, but did pick up in 2019. And if you look at the Democratic Alliance, which is the 3rd largest party in that province, they are pinning their hopes on councillor and their premier candidate, and that's Chris Pappas. 32 years old. Will he take the party to the promised land? That, of course, is the question. They've been on a steady but very slow rise since 1994. They moved up to 2nd position in 2014, but, of course, reverted to 3rd in 2019. Those are the parties that we are going to have for you here. But before we speak to our panelists, let me tell you how you are going to be part of this show. We are particularly interested in hearing your views and opinions on several matters that we will discuss not only this afternoon, but over the next 8 weeks. We'll do this interactively, and we'll rely on your responses and input to our poll question of the day to drive the show. And on a day like today, when King Misizulu Kazolitini was supposed to meet with leaders of the provincial government to discuss recent developments that gave rise to fears of intolerance in the province, we are asking you to tell us whether you believe that parties are doing enough to quell the risk or threat of political violence in KwaZulu-Natal ahead of the 29 May election. Your options are: yes, political parties are doing enough, if that's how you feel, or no, they aren't doing enough, if that's your view, or I believe the police need to do more. You can respond to this question by scanning the barcode that's on your screen. Your votes will come through in real time, and we'll display them throughout the next hour. So please, don't be shy. Let's engage. Scan the barcode on the screen with your phone, and of course, you will, in that way, you'll be part of this conversation. To kick us off, here's some background to what was supposed to a meeting that was supposed to take place today between King Misuzulu Kazwelithini and the government of KwaZulu-Natal. It's a story I did the day after the incident that started it all. A solemn occasion to commemorate the 110th anniversary of the death of King Dinuzulu Kacetshwayo turned into a spectacle.
The leader of the ANC in this province, Mr. Begimtolo, who is in fact the besithanda ukuthi sihloniphe usuku esikona ngishaya ngicela uhlale phansi besithanda uzothula isilo uyawulimaza umcimbi omuhle kangaka wesilo sasosuthu. You are becoming clumsy, and esizathu esenza ukuthi sihloniphane ukuthi okade phambili ngaphambi kwakho beyihloniphe into government.
Perhaps not much would have been read into the drama if the two involved were not senior ANC and IFP leaders, traditional rival parties whose past conflicts have had disastrous consequences for the provinces of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. At the height of the two parties feuding between 1984 and 1994, around 20,000 people died in the two provinces. With so much at stake in the oncoming May 29 poll, ahead of which the governing ANC is thought to be most vulnerable, with a real chance of losing its majority in the two provinces, opposition parties, young and old, want to stake their claim, some with concerning utterances.
The ballot of MK, they remove President Zuma as the president and our face of the campaign and try to take our right, which is enshrined in Chapter 12 of the Constitution. Currently, there won't be elections in South Africa.
Such comments, analysts say, have a chilling effect.
Speaking from where I'm standing, the situation we find ourselves in right now could have been avoided, and Mr. Kanyele is also not assisting in the matter, so no one for me is in the clear as far as this issue is concerned.
While death and violence in KwaZulu-Natal before 1994 was aided significantly by the apartheid regime, the death of apartheid didn't kill the rivalry between the ANC and the IFP. But leadership and maturity went a long way towards preventing the worst. Well, I am now joined by representatives of the top three parties in KwaZulu-Natal. Here with me in studio, I have the DA's Chris Pappas, who is, of course, the DA's premier candidate. And on the line, via virtual link, I have the ANC's Siboniso Duma, who is the chairperson of the party in KwaZulu-Natal and its presumptive premier candidate. We are expecting the IFP's premier candidate, Tami Nduli, to join us any moment from now. Thanks to both of you gentlemen for agreeing to come on this program today. Really appreciate it. The main reason, Mr. Duma, you are not physically here with me in studio had a lot to do with a meeting the provincial government was supposed to have today with the King over that very matter I was talking about in that insert. Did that meeting take place?
Thank you, Mr. Mpogo, to your good service. Let's also greet your viewers at home and the fellow panelists, the one who's on student and the one who's just going to join. I'm just laughing, Babu Mpogo, because you know, in terms of journalism, the role that what we are currently doing.
Yeah, continue, sir.
May I proceed?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Marx in one of his epilogues talk about ideological superstructure, and media is among those. It could either be used as a weapon or a tool just to transform what is being consumed by the outside world. I will tell you why one just will highlight that. The reality is that the media during the election must purport to attribute what could be positive for the society. I know why to play that. I thought we were going to balance the equation probably by highlighting what has been happening probably at Umgeni when the Auditor Generals talk about it. And I thought we were going to highlight what has been happening within the municipality called Umhlatuza, where two bodyguards were killed. But nevertheless, we understand that
we are going to those issues. If you don't mind, just confine yourself to.
No problem.
Yes. Please. Did the meeting take place?
No, the meeting. the meeting couldn't take place because of other unforeseen circumstances within the royal household, so it had to be postponed. It didn't take place today.
And how worried are you that if that meeting doesn't take place and these things are left hanging, then we may just have problems down the line?
I wouldn't just go and poll and think that it is in that effect. But the meeting, because remember that we've got a healthy relationship with the royal household, the Zulu royal household in particular. I'm sure you must understand that I don't think at this point in time it is a deciding factor, because I'm sure you've already been heard that since that meeting, I've already spoken twice with His Majesty the King, Isilu Mesizulu Kapegu Zulu. I've spoken to Abantwana who have participated in some instances. Almost a week later, the Premier and DOT MEC Hlomuga met with Abantwana Basendlunkulu in one of the events. So the process continues. It's just that it is amongst those things that in a culture and the practice of Africa, whenever there was a mishap or a hiccups, from time to time you must meet, so that from there you just arrive at a breakthrough level or you agree. So for me, I think the material condition is okay. We are good in ensuring that, yes, we also close this chapter, which was unfortunate in the process.
Mr. Babas, how big an issue is this for you?
So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today, and greetings to colleagues in KZN. I think Honourable Duma is underplaying the significance of this particular event. Now, I don't often like to engage in politics, especially when it involves the royal household, because I think for a very long time the royal household has been abused through the current government in our province, to a point where we've drawn them in on repeated occasions into political matters that they should not be involved in. But I think for those of us who come from KZN and those of us who are involved in the political discourse of that particular province, we understand the significance of not only undermining Indunankulu, but the continued pushback and disrespect that has been shown, as opposed to the accountability that we would expect. A simple apology with then the relevant repercussions that would follow that. But yes, for people in KZN, particularly those who still respect the royal household for what it stands for and what it is, this is a significant issue. And as your introduction indicated, that if not resolved could lead to much bigger things. And we do hope that it is resolved in the long run for stability's sake.
Mr. Ntuli, I mean, how do you propose this issue be dealt with?
Well, good afternoon to yourself and the viewers at home, and also to Honorable MEC Duma and His Worship the Mayor Papas. Well, our view as the IFP on the matter, first and foremost, is that what happened there should have not happened. Leaders understanding the political situation in our province really needs to become, so that we depict a picture of tolerance amongst ourselves, so that even the members will follow the suit. And we are of the view that after the incident, there was a need to approach the Prime Minister of the Zulu Nation, and to even acknowledge and accept the decision by the King to appoint the Prime Minister of the Zulu Nation, and then accept whoever is appointed by the King. I think any dialogue, whether the Prime Minister of the Zulu Nation is legitimate or not, in fact, is not showing some remorse, and is not, in fact, displaying leadership during the difficult times, because in every situation as leaders, we need to appear rising above any situation, because we lead the society, that we need to ensure that they remain united, that we need to ensure that they remain respecting authorities, so that they will be also able to respect ourselves as leaders. I'm of the view that the important, in fact, gesture to show some remorse towards the Prime Minister of the Zulu Nation, it will pave the way forward, even in ensuring that the authority of the King in our nation is not, in fact, hesitated when leaders also behave in a proper manner.
You're talking, before we move on, because we don't have a lot of time, you're talking about leadership. Now, the ANC believes, Mr. Nduli, that its chairperson was provoked, and your party has condemned Mr. Duma in no uncertain terms. So I don't want you to repeat that. But do you believe that the traditional prime minister himself was correct in how he handled that situation on the day?
I think the traditional prime minister showed a leadership because he remained calm under the circumstances that prevailed in that day. We are of the view as the IFP
but that was after the fact, if I may say. I'm asking whether you believe he should have gone where he went, which Mr. Duma and the ANC saw as a provocation. And I'm asking this in the context of you saying there needs to be leadership. In other words, we need to look at things on balance.
Yeah, I'm presenting a balanced fact here that, you see, when a traditional leader presents or makes a presentation, if there is a need to interact with the presentation, you do that with respect. You see, we are not saying whatever is said must be accepted, even if it's not in line with the understanding of everyone. But how then you react to a situation must make even the children at home who are viewing what the proceedings say, hey, our leaders, they respect one another. They allow some presentations and approach presentations in a dignified manner. That will not, in fact, suggest that there was an element of a disrespect, especially in our culture. You see, when the king or even Amakosi, even the Izinduna, the headmen, when they are on a platform, in our culture, we respect them, we respect whatever they present. If then there is a need to engage, we must engage in a dignified way that will keep the nation as a united nation and will even cause the younger ones to understand that as elders, as leaders, we respect one another. Okay,
let's leave it there for now. Remember, viewers, you can take part in this conversation by telling us whether you believe that parties are doing enough to quell the risk or threat of political violence in KwaZulu-Natal ahead of the May elections. Your options are yes, political parties are doing enough, or no, they aren't doing enough, if that's your view, or I believe police should do more. You can respond to this question by scanning the QR code that's currently on your screen. Your votes will come through in real time and will display them throughout the program. After this short ad break, these political parties tell us what they are about and what it is that they are offering you, the voter. Now, for many, deciding who to vote for in this election is an arduous task. Tembeka Dliwako is one of those people. Nomarali, as some have come to call her, has been attending manifesto launches of different political parties, even donning the respective party T-shirts as she posed next to the leaders. Has she finally made up her mind about who to vote for?
The only thing abakhulume ngayo is unemployment kuwo wonke nje like amarally engahambile yonke into abayibalile babale about unemployment nokuthi bazonika abantu imisebenzi bekhuphule nama-grant. But engayizwa kakhulu nengayithanda ya Mr. Mashaba wabala about ingane zesikole zama-TVET ukuthi nazo zizokwenzela kube right, zithole uNSFAS kulunge konke kube right. ngoba ngi-students mina ngifunda e-Ladysmith campus sibe nenkinga ye-NSFAS kumanje nje ehlela siye esikoleni asifunda siqhubeke and kuzobhalwa nje soon so thina asifundanga asibhalile abanye abanazo imali emqashweni bayaxoshwa cause e-Ladysmith abanayo rest like isiqashile so nje into ebaleke kakhulu kumina nakuthina siyiyouth ngoba iyouth eningi yafunda ku-NSFAS. Lisashoda iqembu kusashoda i-MK then ke after ke MK ke lapho ngiyobe sengidecide ukuthi ngizovotela liphi iqembu kuzobe kokuqala that's why ngithe ngifuna ukucabanga kahle ngingalimoshi ivoti lami ngiliso kumuntu othembisayo nothembisa lento esidingayo thina eziyouth. Libalekile kakhulu ivoti thina sabantu abasha ngoba ithina esesiyouth yase South Africa manje zonke izinto ezizokwenzeka nabantu esobavotela lezo zinto zo affecta kuthina kusasa ngoba we are the futures of South Africa. Nje engifisa ukueda ukuthi sicela usizo thina eze ama-students ase-Ladysmith campus la sifunda khona kuyimanje hleli nje emqashweni sirentela imahala asiye esikoleni ngenxa yokuthi ingane zistrekhela ukuthi imali azinayo ezinye ifaka ko-open learning nje kuningi beside ke i-Ladysmith namanye ama-college yini majuba kade ngibona last week ibe nenkinga isemfolozi nje konke nje ama-college nje cela ukuthi ohulumeni bengenelele nje kuwo.
Here's a first-time voter, Chris Purpose, who raises the issues that everyone knows about: unemployment, education, poverty, and so on. And she thinks that all of you have pretty much the same offering. Yeah, what distinguishes your offering from that of the rest?
So firstly, it's exciting to see other young people involved and actually caring about the future. And I do hope there's more people out there who do. So I think it comes down to implementation. We often talk as politicians and we give great speeches and we have great rallies and we talk a lot. But it comes down to implementation, and that is easily measurable. To say, well, where different political parties are in power, particularly at a provincial level, since this is a provincial election, what is the track record of those particular parties in government? Now, we've heard that the top priority for all political parties is an economy and creating jobs. Now, by all measures, when you look at the DA's-run Western Cape, which is the province that we run, so it's an equal measure, ANC-run provinces versus our province, unemployment and the economy seems to be doing much better than anywhere else. So this is a practical way for voters to say, well, there's a lot of talk out there, there's a lot of parties who pop up during elections and have great glossy manifestos, but when it comes down to implementation, that is when voters can really look at the nuts and bolts to say, when the DA is in government, what does the economy look like?
But then, I mean, if the 29 results are anything, election results are anything to go by, people would rather trust the IFP than you, because you, I mean, we're at second and then you've gone down to third. Sure,
so I think you've actually got to look at the results of KZN as a whole. So remember that we used to have the NFP in the election. The NFP took a lot of votes away from the IFP during a time when they were going through some internal struggle and redefining themselves. With the collapse of the NFP, many of those voters went back to the IFP, regaining their position as the second biggest party in the province. But since then, the DA has been growing continuously. In every election in KwaZulu-Natal, the DA has grown. And we've seen now the latest polls that were released on Monday, and polls are only a glimpse in time. But what the polls show is that the DA has grown considerably in the province, to a point now where we are no longer competing to bring the ANC below 50%, but now we are competing to be the second biggest party in the province. And
I don't know about the polls, because your party is first to reject the polls when they don't speak favorably of it.
Of course. I mean, any party that looks at a poll that isn't credible is going to reject them. But when you look over time at the polls that are often within a close margin of error of the results, They are obviously, again, not completely accurate, but they do give you a picture, a glimpse in time. Now, this particular one is the Social Research Foundation, and the way that you know that there's some sort of credibility is the way that the markets reacted.
Okay.
The markets reacted and things happened.
That's for that. Mr. Ntuli, what is your offering in this election, especially given the fact that, I mean, over the years, people seemed, for the longest time, people seem to be losing faith in your party?
Well, thank you for that question. In fact, I'm not of that view that people are losing hope, because when you see that demonstration through 2019 national and provincial elections, we increased the support and became the official opposition, you have just said.
For the first time in a long time.
Yes, in 2021, we regained many municipalities in the province, and even now in by-elections, people are supporting us in most of the by-elections, even in the historically strongholds of the ANC, people are supporting the IFP. We want to actually afford the people of KwaZulu-Natal hope by fixing the problems that they are faced with in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. We will recall that we once governed this province of KwaZulu-Natal, and we did massive infrastructural investment, wherein you can speak of the classrooms, you can speak of the colleges of education, which is, I believe, the base in which the nation can build from, because education is always important, in fact, to prepare future leaders. And we attracted investors, and even the lawlessness was not an issue in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and we're hoping that when the people of KwaZulu-Natal affords us as the IFP an opportunity to govern, we'll be able, in fact, to partner with them and partner even with the private sector to try and address the backlog in terms of the infrastructure and even the aging infrastructure, while ensuring that even every citizen in the province of KwaZulu-Natal is safe. Children and women, they are safe to walk on the street even at night. And that is what we are hoping to achieve for the people of KwaZulu-Natal when they afford us an opportunity and fix even the government institutions which are now collapsing. You can talk of the education, the schools. You can talk of the health institutions such as clinics and hospitals, the programs which are there. All the departments will inspire a culture where people will respect people, those who are employed, while ensuring that they are supported, in fact, to be able to deliver quality services to the people who are not only talking about things which are a mere dream, but we governed this province of KwaZulu-Natal, and we presented clean government to the people of KwaZulu-Natal.
Mr. Tuma, I mean, dropping for the very first time in the last election must have gotten you worried. What is it that you're doing right now, and what are the issues for you in this election?
If you enter in the King Shaka Airport, which has been built by the new dispensation of the ANC, you will just realize that it was actually KwaZulu-Natal is a construction site as we speak. Whether you run through the N2 and the N3, Central is busy. It's unfortunate that I'm dealing with councillors, pseudo premier candidates who only understand the myopic scope of a ward and the by-election. They don't have the glimpse of what is a gross domestic product of KwaZulu-Natal. They don't understand the scale of 156 billion. They don't understand that actually in the last financial year and in the last 2 quarters, we have led with 150 and 170 billion of creating new employment for the country called South Africa. I'm sure because they both drive in this road, you go around Gateway, there is a new interchange that has been built by this government. There is Umgeni interchange. Currently, there is a special framework on the issue of pavilion. It tells you there are new schools, and I'm worried a bit that in terms of understanding the control lines, KwaZulu-Natal, as you know, became number 2 in terms of matric result as a result of this government. In terms of the metrics that got more result in terms of distinction, it was produced by KwaZulu-Natal, these rural areas. So I'm a little bit skeptical that we are deceiving people. How are these, or the issue of DA and the subsidiaries or the Moonshot Pact, how are they going to lead if they are deceiving at a basic scale? Because I thought we were going to start there. I understand Babumvoko, the two papas speak at a level of advantage. He's been in the system, he grew up in a farm where they were oppressing people. They stole the people's land, so it became easier. Just even they talk about sensitive matters, they don't understand the sensitivity. And I thought you were just going to quell further when Mr. Ntuli was speaking about the leadership. When it comes to crime, 2 people have been killed in the municipality. Why would you expect that he is talking more on a hypothesis, something that has not taken place in terms of violence, yet he's forgiving of encroaching on the scope? This government procured 95 bakkies that are going to deal with crime at the level of a premier. We spoke about the construction site called KwaZulu-Natal. We are currently busy doing that. When it comes to the enrollment of NEPSAS, just let me give you a flashback. In 94,
no, I was going to say, before you get there, can I ask something? I mean, King Shaka and the Gateway and Umgeni interchanges, the schools you're talking about, I mean, were built or had been built 5 years ago, but that didn't stop people from starting to lose faith and confidence in you if the results are anything to go by. So what is it that, I mean, shouldn't you be talking about acknowledging where you went wrong first and then telling them what it is that you will be doing going forward?
I'm sure you saw the 6 pillars that were presented in Moses Mabhida, the manifesto by the president, the issue of jobs. But what is fortunate for this ANC, the ruling party, when we're talking about this, we're not talking about hearsays. We are practical emblems. Remember the 1955, that for us it is simply the implementation methodology of what we fought for and started for, the issue of jobs, the issue of service delivery, the issue of us addressing the imbalances of the past by creating new factories, industrialization. It is the concept that can only be brought by this government. And a lot has been built. I was just giving you a basic element that in the 90s, there were no Moses Mabhida built for Africans in particular. It was only for few privileged. And now we must address, remember, you've spoken about 12.4 million population. It's an increasing budget. Remember, in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, on a day-to-day basis, our clinics, our school services, the populace that comes from Swaziland, our bordering nation, it comes from Lesotho, and we don't fail in ensuring that we encompass the scope of balancing those issues with the little budget, which is why we'll have 60 billion budgeted for education, just to increase the scope, the health. So a lot has already been done in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. I've already highlighted in terms of tertiary education that the NEPSAS we are referring to at this point in time, it comes for 500 million. Today it's 45 billion. And that is why I'm saying that you have more enrollment in our school. And it has been proven through the metric result that it was KwaZulu-Natal indeed. We are utilizing the economic transformation. People today in the province have factories that are controlling the means of production in some sectors. Only because of this government. It was something that was only a dream in the 90s. For 342 years, a certain group was only controlling all those issues till the ANC came to power.
Now, Chris Papas, everyone goes into an election with a view or desire to win, but there are realities. There's very little chance, if any, of you jumping from where you are now to taking over KwaZulu-Natal. What permutations do you have? Now, realistically, what will you do in the event you fall short of your dreams?
So I think if we are all honest of ourselves as political parties in KZN, there'll be no political party that gets 50%. And those who do say that they will are, stop listening right there, because they are lying.
What are options then?
So I mean, it is going to be a coalition government in KwaZulu-Natal. And obviously, Mr. Duma, as he moonlights as a Soviet-era leader who continues to disrespect people, regardless whether it's the king or his colleagues on a panel, thinks that he's going to govern again. But it's the same arrogance and the same sort of disdain and lack of being in touch with the people on the ground that is going to get him out of power. So we are looking at a coalition government. Now, we are working hard to make a pre-election agreement work, and our partners in KwaZulu-Natal are the IFP. Now, we are independent political parties campaigning on our own manifestos. No, unfortunately not.
But then your leader, national leader, keeps on making overtures, talking about the possibility of an ANC Democratic Alliance possibility. You know, if there's a meeting of minds, and you at provincial level are talking a different language.
No, but that's not entirely true. What Steenhuisen said is that there are worse possibilities than an ANC-DA coalition. That doesn't mean that we want to go into coalition with them. What it's saying is that what we don't want after the elections is MK, EFF and ANC to go into a coalition, because that will just destroy our country. That's not to say that we want to go into a coalition with the ANC by any chance, but so be it. So what we're looking for is a stable coalition at the center with people who are like-minded, who can agree on a number of things, people who can sit around a table and respectfully disagree with each other or respectfully come up with solutions. Now, we've seen over time the arrogance of the ANC. Whether you are proposing good solutions to some of the problems that they have created, or whether you are trying to put new ideas on the table to take our communities forward. But they are unwilling to do so. They have this arrogance about them. But political parties from the multi-party charter and others, like the IFP, are willing to sit around the table and say, well, we've got a huge problem in KZN. Whether it's unemployment, water, whatever it might be, how do we collectively solve those, because those are the problems that our communities face.
Okay, Mr. Ntuli, in the likely event that you won't get an outright majority, what are your options?
Well, I think as the IFP, we will consider after the elections, when we have seen how many seats we have in fact got, on the parties to work with if we will not win outrightly. But it's important to, in fact, mention that the IFP has been on an upward trajectory in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, not only in by-elections like the Honorable MEC Duma is saying. You recall that in 2019, I've already mentioned that we became the official opposition and we have regained municipalities that were not governing. That is an indication that the support of the IFP is growing in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And even when I mentioned the issue of the stronghold historically of the ANC, wherein people are voting for the IFP, I don't think we can view people who vote in by-elections as people who will not play a role in the provincial government elections. We are hopeful that the support we're enjoying will continue.
But what happens? But what happens if you don't? Have you not started those conversations at all?
Not exactly. There are other, like in the Moonpeg short talks, which are actually unfolding there. Though we always maintain the position that the talks which are taking place, they do not confine us to what is being discussed now that or negotiated now that after the elections will go that route. Will be still will be open to the negotiations, which will be informed by what will transpire after the elections. But I wanted to mention that, you see, for the people of KwaZulu-Natal, you can't paint a glossy picture that because the two premier candidates are councillors, they don't understand the reality. We are the ones who really understand what is happening in the grassroots. The view of the people is different from what the Honorable MEC Boma is saying. People of KwaZulu-Natal, they feel the pressure of the problems that they are faced within the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The glossy picture that is being painted here is not the true reflection of KwaZulu-Natal.
Come the 1st of June, Mr. Duma, or whenever the results are going to be announced, and you don't get that outright majority, what options does the ANC have, and have you started any negotiations with anybody?
Kawa died many times before their real death. The ANC is going to win decisive victory for this election. And unfortunately, I feel bad for my fellow panelists that they are already planning the ifs, the not, and all those things. The reality is that the A is not growing. Just remember that today, Steenhuisen will say that we want to come. We don't want the coalition with the DA. we won't have the coalition. And it's easy, and I'm glad that I thought we were going to highlight the latest poll that was developed, falsifying the reality by the DA. It has been caught off, and no one is want to blow it out of proportion for simple reason, as you know. I'm sure you must also understand that people in the province of KwaZulu-Natal has shown a lot of understanding, and our democracy has grown from time to time. They've told us clear in our door-to-door, ANC, we still trust you as the liberator. You've liberated us. Increase the concept of service delivery. We are currently building Umkomazi, the dam which is going to address the imbalance of water at Puku, at Tegwini, Mpungundlovu, and Herikwala. It means that, you know, at Mpopomene, current or Red Umgeni has dealt with a new reservoir. Okay. And you just have to understand that we are going to proceed with the issue of electricity. For the last 18 days, there was no load shedding. It means that there is an improvement towards our plans. And already that tell you that it's a correct thing that is going to take place. Our economy, because the international scope or the global trends, the market is not doing good for the global village, not for South Africa. But against all odds, which is why we are even defending and deepening the processes of assisting even those who can't assist them in the entire Africa in the scope. Okay, so Chris Papas, let me thank all of you for agreeing to come on, but this is not the end of this conversation, but thank you for today. Now, if you still haven't, please remember to scan the QR code at the top right hand of your screen for the poll we are running, which is also live on X at Newzroom 405, and tell us whether you believe that parties are doing enough to quell the risk or threat of political violence in KwaZulu-Natal ahead of the May 29 election. We will put up the final results of the poll before the end of the show, but not before our interview of the day. Do stay with us. Now, the big election story of the past week, and no doubt the next, is the decision by the IEC to approach the Constitutional Court to appeal the Electoral Court's decision to rule in favor of the MK party. The move has set tongues wagging, leading to all sorts of speculation and accusations. With the IEC deciding to hold off from talking further on the matter, who better to ask than retired Justice Johan Krichler, the first chairperson of the IEC, at a time, of course, when the country is commemorating 30 years of democracy. Good afternoon, Judge. Thanks very much for your time.
Good afternoon to you and to the viewers.
You're as fit as a fiddle, I can see.
I feel that way.
I'm sorry to... Just what do you make, maybe if we start there, of this whole affair that has been playing itself out over the past week?
Well, let's get our balance straight. When an election is in the offing, rumors run wild. Emotions get hold of people and run away with them. There's nothing particularly exciting about the decision of the IEC to take a decision of the Electoral Court on appeal. On the contrary, it's a perfectly normal, proper, and probably predictable thing to have done. I see no basis for suspicion or rumor of any kind whatsoever.
Well, I mean, they are being accused, certainly by the aggrieved party, MK, of entering the political terrain.
The Constitution creates the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Act gives it certain powers and obligations, responsibilities. In general, they've got to see that the election is run freely, fairly, orderly, and in terms of the applicable law. There is now a dispute about what the law is relating to this particular issue. The Electoral Commission decides in its wisdom that it wants the opinion of the Constitutional Court on this matter of very important political significance to all of us. There's nothing in that to be criticized. I can't blame politicians for trying to score points off one another. But I must say it's singularly unwise, if not unpatriotic, for a political party to attack the Commission. The Commission is the referee. The game can only be a good contest as long as the referee's integrity and authority is respected. It's most unwise to challenge that on an issue such as this, where the law is perfectly clear. It has a duty to do what it is doing.
If you were Mosotho Mepia, if you were a Janet Love, you would have done the same.
Certainly, I think anybody who had taken the oath of office as a commissioner would have done the same. Here is an issue that is quite clearly of great political moment. MK wouldn't have been making the big noises that it does if it were not that important. It is quite clearly of great importance to the other political parties, particularly to the governing party. And for the Electoral Commission in those circumstances to say, I'm not going to take it on myself to accept the decision at the first level when there is so much dispute and debate about it. Let's get a final answer, an authoritative answer, and we can go forward in the knowledge, all of us, that we know what the law is.
Doesn't the fact that the people, the IEC has taken this matter to, which of course is the court of last resort, is the very same court that sent the former president to prison?
Please. Of course it's the same court, it's different people incidentally. But be that as it may, it's got absolutely nothing to do with who sent Mr. Zuma to prison at the time. And incidentally, that's a pretty simple oversimplification of what actually happened. There are many of those who would say that Mr. Zuma sent himself to prison by refusing to cooperate with the Zondo Commission. But that's a politically debatable issue. To say that the Constitutional Court cannot determine the issue is once again clever tactics, but not wise. I do not believe that it behoves any responsible political leader at this stage of the process of our 7th election to start throwing stones around in a glass house. I don't think it's a good idea.
Now, I mean, in an era where all these court cases are being beamed live to millions of people, those tactics do stick in the minds of many people, isn't it?
Vuyo, as a South African, you and I have one thing about which we and everybody viewing this show can be proud of, is that our Electoral Commission has established an unblemished track record over 6 contested elections in the past. For an emergent democracy to have done that without any blemish, without any serial contention, is a world astounding achievement. For people at this stage to start throwing stones and mud and other liquid material at the Electoral Commission is not justified, and I believe it is not warranted.
I mean, you went straight to where I was going to next. I mean, because, after 30 years, everyone is taking a pause and saying, let's look back, at what we've done as a democracy. And among the institutions that have upheld this democracy, certainly in the view of a great majority of people, has been the IEC. Do you think that lately or in recent years that has changed? In other words, it is not the IEC that people like you started, in which over the years, was praised by a lot of people, including, it must be pointed out, by former President Jacob Zuma himself.
Vuyo, there's no doubt about it that the institution has carried on steadily with new members joining, old members retiring. It has maintained a reputation not only within the borders of South Africa, not only on the African continent, but anywhere where electoral administrators talk. And I've worked in many, many countries around the world. The South African Electoral Commission is recognized as an outstanding body. Of course, the membership changes, but the tradition stands. The staff of the members of the Commission replace one another over time. There is no earthly reason to think that the standard is any lower now than it has ever been in the past. May I just say one thing? I saw in the media an attack on Janet Love on the basis that she was acting improperly in January this year when she expressed an opinion on the legal issue which is now going to the Constitutional Court. It was Ms. Love's duty to speak at the time that she did. She was asked about the matter. She expressed her personal, valid, held view. She may be right, she may be wrong, but to fault her for having expressed the opinion is either ignorant or malicious.
Are there issues or areas in our entire political system that you believe that could, in the end, wittingly or not, damage the elections ecosystem as we move forward as a country?
Elections are infinitely complex, administratively, technically, logistically, in terms of human resources, and above all, politically. These elections that are coming up are going to be highly contested, the most closely contested since we emerged from the darkness into the democratic high area. There is every danger that if senior participating players start casting doubt on the integrity, the whole process can get spoilt. We managed in 1994 to hold elections in the most impossible circumstances, in circumstances where the experts said to us, "You're mad to try to run elections now. You couldn't possibly do it." We succeeded because the leadership of the political parties played with due responsibility towards the country and their fellow citizens. It is the same duty that is required now for all to come to the party, to play the game, to play it fairly, and to recognize the authority of the referee and not to cast doubt on it for small political gain.
Charles Kreekler, let me thank you so much for your time and for coming through.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. Time now for a look at some of your views. We took to the streets of Durban to get your thoughts. Let's take a listen.
Siyacela ukuthi njengoba kuzovotwa akungavotela ubala lekuthiwa sivote sikhipha amavote ethu sivotela into engekho. Sicela abantu abangasebenzi bakithi abasize banikeze imisebenzi nabo. Kulanjiwe la asinazi izinto ezinhle, asinakho ukudla, siyasiswela, siyacela ukusizakala. Ingane eziningi ihlele emakhaya sifuna uNSFAS ababatholi. Siyacela babasize ukuthi bangenelele sisizakala ingane.
They need to address the electricity load shedding problem that we have and stop increasing the stages and all of that. They need to address that, and we need electricity. Our things, like they're rotting in our fridges, and some of us, like me, who I am self-employed, and I need to keep my things in the fridge, and sometimes they rot, and that's a problem because now I have to sell and I don't have the products.
The political issues that should be addressed, I feel like road maintenance specifically, and also providing more business incentives and business opportunities so that we can have more youth employment. I mean, we have like a very high unemployment rate, of which most of it is the youth. The youth is more unemployed, and also we need to have more city cleanups.
And into mina engikhala ngayo la eDurban ukuthi kunokugebengu okuningi kakhulu. Amaphara hamba lana nesibindi bazobuka bekale bekunake iviki lonke mase bayakubamba mhlambe next week noma nje uyihlalele eparki okwazi ukuhlala urelax ngoba kufika umuntu manje usefuna uphuca izinto. So ugebengu nalana nje ku high kakhulu ufanele bezama ukusiza abantu ukuthi kwehlise ugebengu because of you don't feel safe nje uhamba emgaqweni.
Indaba yamanzi kuyiyona isituation outcry everywhere, but ke ngoba iyalungiswa ke futhi siyakubona ke futhi njengoba since kwenzeka, we are trying by all means ukuthi kwenzeke ukuthi kulungiseke nogesi ke since ugesi ke kwaba i challenge kosho ukuthi elikhulu i challenge kodwa manje seku right.
Well, the views there, but also hopes and aspirations of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Let's now bring you the results of that poll. At the beginning of the show, we asked whether you thought parties were doing enough to quell the risk or threat of political violence in KwaZulu-Natal ahead of the 29 May election. And here's what you have said. 6% of you saying they do their best. A whopping 79% say the politicians are simply not doing enough, and 15% say it is the police's job. Before we leave you, here's a view from us. Even with all the foresight the writers of our Constitution had when they crafted our world-renowned Constitution, none of them would have predicted some of the things we've seen over the past 30 years in our country. Now, to have a former president in and out of the courts for such a wide range of issues, including being sent to prison for defying the Constitutional Court, would be one of those. But just like any one of us, the 62 million of us, that is, Jacob Zuma, of course, enjoys full constitutional rights that should never be taken away from him willy-nilly, not under any circumstances. The rule of law applies to all of us equally. Now, the Electoral Court demonstrated this when, to the surprise of many who thought otherwise, ruled that the IEC was wrong to disqualify Zuma from running for election. But to seek clarity from the highest court in the land on the interpretation of the law cannot, in and of itself, be a subversion of our country's supreme law, the Constitution. Now, election time can be a silly season, but playing politics with both the law and the institutions that uphold it is a very dangerous game. That applies to the courts, institutions upholding democracy, and politicians. We hope sanity will prevail and the Constitution will reign supreme. And that's it from us this week, but do join us again next Sunday at 5 p.m. sharp. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.